So thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the 9th edition of the Romanian Film Festival Seattle. And this festival is done in collaboration with the Romanian Film Festival Arizona, which is also having their second edition of the film festival. And it's also done with the support of Arcs Detroit. This is a discussion, a panel discussion about the documentary Us Against Us by director Andra Tarara. Andra is an artist working in cinema, video arts, and photography, and this is her first feature film. We're also happy to have this discussion moderated by Alina Haliliuc, who is a professor of communication at Denison University. Us Against Us is now available to stream online all over the US through November 27th. So please join us for this Q&A, and then also join us for the following ones. We'll have many more discussions in the following days. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabi, and welcome everyone, and hi to everyone who sees us online. It's a pleasure to be here. This is also my second time with the festival. And it's especially exciting to be talking with women filmmakers and artists, visual artists in Romania, and to see the development of their work. And we are privileged to see that work today. You probably have watched already Us Against Us. Just a little bit more to brag about it. It premiered at Jilava, the International Documentary Film Festival in the Czech Republic. And it is Tarara's first feature film that she made in collaboration with her father. And also it won the Romanian Film Festival, the best Romanian Film Festival at Astra Film Festival in 2021. Also being part of many cultural initiatives that aim to fight against the stigmatization of mental health. Andra, thank you for being here and open and willing to talk with us, especially as it is very late right now in Romania. And as you were just sharing before this, you've been filming all day, so really, really grateful to have you here. And I thought that it would be a good idea to start by having our audiences get to know a little bit more about how you see yourself as an artist and how you see your work. So I want to start with a question about that. And I wonder if you can share what does it mean for you to be as you call it, an artist working in cinema, video art, and photography, rather than identifying as a filmmaker alone. And you have this combination of degrees, finishing in film as an undergraduate, and then you went and did a master's in visual anthropology in Romania. And I wonder if you can talk about how that, if at all, has impacted how you see yourself as an artist. What did anthropology and social science bring to you that you wanted to have?
Hello, first of all, thank you for having me here and having the film screened online in the USA. And yeah, for me, it's kind of new as well, because until very recently, I used to present myself only as filmmaker. But at some point, I had to send my short bio for a project that was not cinema related. And I realized that it's not quite accurate anymore, presenting myself just as filmmaker, because in the last couple of years, a big part of my work implied photography and film and video, but not only for cinema. I worked for theater projects. I'm working on a museum. I have a full-time job actually in a museum in Bucharest. And I enjoy very much switching between projects and I don't know, video art projects and theater, and actually everything goes back to a point when I realized that now I really can choose my own projects, and I felt the need to, I don't know, set some principles. And I realized that for me as an artist, it is more important to work on projects I really care about and which are very in line with my ideas and my thoughts, and which I think that are, I don't know, relevant for the society, rather than working just in film, but not only in projects that really interest me in that way. I don't know, feeling their social impact and really being in line with my thoughts. So this is the choice I made a while ago, and I'm sticking to it because I don't know, it's very satisfying seeing myself in collaborating with other artists as well, and in different contexts of work. And this year, actually, I made a video installation for a theater play. And yeah, I like a lot to collaborate on other artists' projects and see my work as part of a bigger picture and for other audiences. But then again, I still work with video and photography mainly, so not only, but mainly these are my tools for the other projects as well. As for anthropology, well, after I finished the film school, I have this BA on cinematography. I got more interested in documentary, and at that point, the film school in Bucharest didn't have anything on documentary. Now there is an MA program, but at that point there was nothing. And I don't know, I felt like the need to discuss the questions I had about how do you talk with people, how do you get in a community as a filmmaker, I don't know, ethical questions, how do you relate with people, what are the risks. So yeah, that's why I went to this MA program, and I think it was a very nice choice because it kind of responded some of my questions, and I didn't want to be an anthropologist at all, but as a filmmaker, it was a very good experience for me.
It's so rewarding. I'm imagining to be able to be at this point in your career where you feel like you can choose your projects, and I would think I wonder, I guess, also just to follow up a little bit on your work at the museum. Can you share a little bit about just, I don't know if you would like a little bit about that. I imagine museum work to be a lot about curating. I mean, I can kind of see parallels with the work of curating spaces and stories. And but is that what you're doing? And what museum are you working for?
It's the Romanian Peasant Museum, and I'm working on the Image Archive, Image in Sound Archive. And we are like 4 young people working there, and we're doing everything. I mean, from organizing the archive to working with the public, with researchers or artists or people who come to see the archive, with students as well. And yeah, curating also and making exhibitions and projects using the archive.
That's great. And where can I guess this question is more for Romanian public who's now in Bucharest, but your theater project, your video installation, can you tell us a little bit more about that? The recent one you just mentioned?
In theater, you mean?
Yeah, the one you just said that you've just done a video installation in theater.
Yeah, the play is called Immortals, and it's part of in Bucharest is this thing called like political theater. It's a team that I don't know, I think for 15 years now, identify themselves with this term. And yeah, of course, all art is political, but when they started, it wasn't that obvious. And yeah, so in this context, this year, I'm collaborating with them for many years now, like filming teasers and the plays and taking photographs. But this time I'm part of the main team working as an artist. So Immortals by Bogdan Georgescu is the show.
Thank you so much. That's so exciting to just kind of see, I imagine you moving, right? Right now, I wish I were in Bucharest and able to see all of this work, right? But if some of our viewers are seeing this from Bucharest, hopefully they can come and see the play Immortals and visit the museum as well to see more of your work. You mentioned that anthropology took you to documentary, and obviously, you know, we are talking about a documentary that you've made. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you turned to documentary as a genre, and why you're staying with it? You made a documentary about also your grandmother's death. You collaborate in other, or co-wrote and co-made other documentaries. What draws you about this genre and keeps you?
It's kind of a difficult question because I think I started from very little. I mean, I was like 9, 10 years old when I started to take photographs, and I was taking photos of whatever I liked. I mean, I have photos of my toys and of places I liked, and of my friends when I was little. So it was for me a way to just, I don't know, preserve memories and keep with me things that I enjoyed. So I think documentary was kind of like the first form, the first way to discover film in the first place, the first way to discover photography. I mean, it was the main role for me, way before seeing it as a career or even as an art. I mean, it was like a second language, starting this little. And now I'm very interested in working with, on one hand, with found footage material. I like a lot using things that already exist and starting from something. And with reality, I think that it works the same. I mean, there already is something in front of your camera. In fiction, it is different. I mean, you start with a blank page and you're imagining everything from zero, and it kind of scares me. In documentary, it's a process of discovering. I think it's more about the process, you know, because in fiction, like the film, it's like the ending point of this process. While in documentary, I feel that the documentary is the process itself, and I find it like a lot more stimulating. Of course, there are ways to make fiction as well in, I don't know, alternative independent films can work very differently, but I don't know, the traditional way to make fiction film, yeah, I don't quite fit there.
And I can see how documentary can be, I mean, both are very collaborative ways of working, but the co-authorship, right? The invention process is happening gradually and you discover it, right? And can definitely see that in your film. And I wanted to talk a little more about that, right? Because you started this film, Us Against Us, with an idea where you wanted to trace the shared aesthetic sensibilities between you and your father. And then you ended up with a film where that's still there, but it's not center stage. What becomes center stage is what he brought up, which is a discussion of mental health and his mental health in particular. So I wanted to ask a couple of questions about, first of all, just where did this idea, the original idea of the shared aesthetic sensibilities, like where did that come from as a topic of inquiry for you in this documentary format? And then also a second question about how did you experience that turning around kind of of the topic while you're making the documentary? There's that beautiful scene, you know, that we can talk about more later or have audiences you know, when we have the Q&A later, of when you have this discussion about plans with your dad. But I want to hear a little bit more about how did that feel to you when you were making the film that we don't see in the documentary?
The documentary is actually part of the MA we talk about, anthropology, the visual anthropology studies, and it was part of my final project. And in the beginning, actually everything began with me finding these VHS tapes. Some of them are used in the film. Part of my family archives, most of it filmed by my father. And yeah, I found it, of course, there are a lot of images with me little, and I think that when I was little, we were watching them regularly. And of course, I knew these tapes existed, but at some point with my father's illness and that, everything went up in a box and we forgot about it. And I found them again after I finished film school. And they looked kind of new to me because there were like a lot of memories I didn't remember anymore. And it was a very bright childhood that was very much forgotten for me. And also that at that point, I was really thinking that filming, it's something that is very mine, that I discovered it myself as a teenager, and I really thought that it's my thing. And yeah, because I've totally forgotten everything that was before. And rediscovering these tapes was huge for me because seeing my father filming, yeah, everything clicked. I mean, all this part, well, when I was little and asking him to film, to let me film as well, and all that interest that began to develop back then. Yeah, that's when I discovered it. And that's how the film started. In the beginning, I imagined that the whole project, I mean, the film and everything else in the project for finishing my MA would be about family archives and about home movies and about both filming and preserving these family memories. So yeah, that's how it started, but step by step, it developed into something else, which was hard to deal with. I mean, I felt very insecure about it and I had no idea where is everything going. It helped a lot, the fact that I didn't have any pressure to finish a film, or I don't know, the film has like zero budget, and until very late it had no producers and it wasn't really part of the filming industry. And yeah, that was no pressure. So it helped a lot to deal with all the insecurities. And yeah, it was very clear for me that I want to make my father part of this process. So yeah, I felt insecure, but in the same time, I was reminding myself each moment that I want this and I want to let things get into a chaos, and then let my father, I don't know, it seemed the right thing to do. If I'm starting this film with some ideas and some things I want to bring into discussion, it seemed the right thing to let my father as well, to bring his own questions and his own things of interest.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I I love the way also how, you know, when you went back, it seemed to be that you're that and I don't know if that's the case, but the place looks similar, the place of your childhood, right? You have a lot of scenes of you as a child in the countryside, and by the way, giving very astute directorial, you know, suggestions. The sideway filming looked much better than the straight front, you know, forward, the frontal camera. So it strikes me when I watch the film, and I would be curious to hear also later how other people saw that the you give a very visceral sense of the place, right? That you take a lot of time with long shots, long takes, with letting the viewer just observe, you know, his house, the garden, you know, like the home video style is there, but then there's this invitational quality, an observational quality, right, of the place, not just of the man, or of the man in the place, and of the relationship in the place. And one of the things that comes up for me in seeing the place is how much this film allows us to reflect on loneliness, right, and isolation, and kind of the ways in which your dad was struggling with that, both the mental isolation, but also kind of it gets me as a viewer to be thinking of the larger social political isolation, right, that he was living in, the isolation maybe that gender identity kind of brings. You have this scenes of male sociality, you know, with his colleagues there, these memories of him and his father, right? And so I wonder how you negotiated that, or how much like you constructed that, or that kind of came just naturally for you, and to what extent did it surprise you with any kind of new insights that you didn't expect in having, about your father and his life?
Actually, there is a part of observation filmed by me, but most of it is filmed by my father himself. And it was him showing me his life. And of course, he might have imagined that there will be at some point a broader audience to see that. But on the first level, he was addressing to me, like his daughter, like, look, this is where I sleep. Look, these are my beehives. And it was like he was introducing me in this space, which of course I knew very well, but in the last years I've like lost all the contact with it. And he wanted me to see all of it and to understand how's his life going, and what is he doing, and all the things that I don't know, are part of his life now. And for me, it's not about that much about isolation, but it's about finding a balance, because you see him with his colleagues in the town, with his actual job, and the social life he was very part of. And in the same time, his need to make his own space and have his time working alone and reading. And yeah, he's saying actually in the film that he needs this balance, and he's trying very much to find it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I wonder if maybe we'll have one more question and then switch it up or open it up. Leave the others that I had for if there is room. But obviously, you know, you're bringing up this topic about mental health and stigmatization of it, and kind of working with your film against that. And I wonder if I can ask a question of just a bigger one of where do you see the discourse of mental health right now in Romania, right? Here in the U.S., right? The millennials, the Gen Z, there's a lot of kind of openness and fluidity about mental health. If anything, it's a prominent discourse, even among generations that are older than that. Where is that in Romania, from what you're observing and noticing, in the public discourse, also in your life?
Well, I think there are social bubbles, in the artistic world. Of course, the discourse, it's we talk a lot about that, and very openly, and you see it everywhere. But again, we're just a bubble. The whole other world, I don't know, on TV or I don't know, mainstream media, the discourse, it's very stigmatizing. But I wanted to say that actually the fight against stigmatization is just the tip of the iceberg, because of course it helps a lot. I mean, it's very important, but I think that we should go further. And for some illnesses, the chronic ones mainly, need social services. I mean, I think that this is the huge topic, because the medical system, it's very under budgeted, and psychiatry is always on the last place. And I think that this is the main problem actually, because like social discourse, it's one thing, but these people need assistance. I mean, this is very important for me, and I think that we kind of forgot that, and make everything at some level be about identities and about discourse, which again are very important, but are only the top of it. There's a lot more to deal with after that.
And how was the experience so far in showing the film, or kind of being part of this kind of public thinking through mental health, right? Thinking through it, I guess, at a level of policies, as you're suggesting, thinking of it as the level of consciousness, thinking of it at the level of the politics, right? It's so interesting how many films have come lately about migration and family life and the disintegration of or the struggles, right, that people have with social support, right, because of economic political conditions that create the conditions for mental health. So I guess when you have been part of these conversations with your film, how have you experienced those conversations? Are they bringing people into all of these areas, or is that a little harder to go and to nudge the conversation towards?
Yeah, I think that the film can build a safe space and people really open up. Maybe because it's so intimate, and after the film they feel the need to share as well. And yeah, they get very emotional usually. But I also had screenings with specialists from hospitals, and there were also good reactions. And yeah, now I'm trying to get in the university and the medical school to show it to students and talk about, to see how they react. But it's very interesting for me, and I think that the film has this power to start the discussion and to create a safe space for everyone to discuss things.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, the circulation of it in different spaces that I would not have imagined, but like such a great idea to take it to public health workers. It's about 37 minutes after, so I don't want to monopolize the discussion and want to open to a few of us here. Of course, I have other questions that we can get into more into the meat of the film, but I'm curious if any other of us here may have their own comments or questions to bring up.
I have a question, if I may, and it's actually to continue the conversation you just had with Alina about the movie in the public space, basically. So if I understand correctly, you started the movie as a more of a personal exploration, right? And then somehow it grew into this, you call it somewhere a cultural intervention, right, in a society. And I want to emphasize this to be able to offer context in a society where people don't talk too much about mental health, where to go to seek out help for mental health is a sign of weakness, right? So it's a taboo subject, and everything that comes with it, right? So I'm wondering about how, and it also sounds like this intervention is not over yet, because you were talking about all of these spaces where you take your movie to raise awareness and to open that conversation you talked about. So I'm wondering about this I guess movement, or growing from a personal exploration to actually pushing the movie into the public space in these multiple ways, and to grow into, as you called it, an intervention.
Actually, I think that my father was the first one who saw it that way. It took me a while, but at some point he realized that I don't know if a public will see him on the screen. He started to think about what things he has to say to that public, and from his position, what lessons can he teach to other people to help them. People may be struggling with the same issues, and also people, I don't know, who had friends struggling with it, but I don't know, as well as random people. Yeah, my father started to think that way, and I just went further.
I have a question as well. Well, two questions, I guess. My first question, which was kind of like a burning question as soon as I finished watching the documentary, is how is your father actually doing? And then my second question is whether he had any input into how the documentary was edited, or if that was just all left to you.
Well, after you saw on the ending on the film that things got worse, and yeah, things are not okay, and I won't elaborate further. And about the second question, my father saw the film like from the very first version of editing, and he was very much part of the process. Of course, the film is mainly from my perspective, but he was also there. At some point, he was uncomfortable with some things that he was saying, and we cut it out, those sequences from the film. So he was very much part of the process.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment? I don't think it's a question. It's more of a comment. Also, you know, because I was talking about this dynamic between personal and public, and the difficulty of this. I just think that what you are doing and what both you and your father are doing with the movie, I really think it's very, very, very brave. So and I'm imagining that it's at many level taking a toll on you as you're going through these conversations. So you know, again, it's a very public way of showing this, right? Because say you wrote a book, right? A book is read in the intimacy, but a movie is seen in such a public way, right? So I think that's what I wanted to say, that it's unbelievably brave from both of you to be doing this, and I'm wondering how much, I guess the question comes now. I'm wondering how much, I'm hoping, no, I'm not wondering, so no question. I'm hoping that this means something for people around you, and that this is actually catalyzing this conversation about mental health in new ways in Romania, and that it's energizing some not just conversations, but actions and ways of thinking and ways of being around the topic and through the topic, or through the issues that come with mental health.
It is actually kind of surprising because a film goes to festivals and cinemas and all of that for 1 year, most of them. And for Us Against Us, I think that the second year just ended, and a lot of screening invitations are just starting. I mean, a lot of people have seen the film in the screenings that we organized, but now we're receiving invitations from some of them to screen the film in their communities and take it further and to discuss it with their communities, and it's amazing, and I'm very happy about this.
So it does sound like you're creating a movement.
There's the communication scholar bias, the rhetorician's bias. We want, or not bias, but desire, I guess, right? The desire for more, for yeah. I one thing that came up for me as I was watching, and that impressed me, was the gaze and your film plays a lot with the gaze, right? Because it's the two of you filming each other, and the voice, right? And one way in which I watched the film, I watched it many times, but just today I was watching it without looking. I was just listening to it, right? Turn the screen around, and just how tender your voices were, right? And then also how tender the gazes of the camera, right? Like, you know, when we teach about, of course, you know, the male gaze, the female gaze, you know, response to the feminist scholarship. And just, I love the way your work models, especially about father-daughter relationships, right? Or family relationships, a tenderness that partly there's something very Romanian about it, right? In you know, the, or maybe to my ear now, right? Like the language is just so so tender, but then also the way in which you both sort of alternate with this very open curiosity and just very invitational way of just looking at each other and discovering each other. And then, yeah, the documentary sort of shows this process of discovery and the kind of the back and forth of the human with their boundaries, who feels like the discovery is too much, right? And then, you know, recoils a little bit, right? Especially that scene about when you're talking about, you know, plan versus process, you know, and there was like this generational differences mapped onto that as well, right? You could see your dad as somebody socialized through communism and its talk, and, you know, and you as your generation. So I don't know if there's a question here, but I just wanted to highlight just how tender this film is, and probably that's what to many speaks as a film where you can kind of pause and reflect. And so I guess maybe I do have a question. It's like, how have you cultivated that purposefully, if at all, at the editing level? I know in another interviews you talked about how you created it intentionally, this pauses, right, of no dialogue, just observing, right? For me, when I was watching with the screen turned around and turned away, I was even more aware of those pauses as allowing me to just like think through, right? And take in, maybe not even think through, but emotionally take in the exchange.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up, because this exchange of gazes was very important for me as well. And it was one of the first things that I decided about this film, because after seeing the VHS tapes that I mentioned, my first thought was to go at my father's and film him, like to return the thing that he did for me when I was little. Now as an adult, to go there and to return this thing. And after that, I had this idea that he loved to film at some point, and maybe if I'm going there with two cameras and give him one of the cameras, he would like to try it again. And that's how everything started, this exchange of perspectives. That's how it started. And I didn't know from the beginning that I want to keep both of the cameras all time on the screen. I mean, in the beginning, I thought that in the editing room, I will switch between the two shots. But when I first saw them together, I realized that this is actually the film, to see all the reactions in the same time. And as a viewer, you get to choose where to look.
Yeah. Lovely. Um, we still have a little bit of time for questions, but while people are thinking through that, if others come up, I feel like I'm torn in asking this question because I also think, so here's the tornness. I like Marie-Louise. I do think that this is such a brave type of work, right? Because you're exposed all the time, right? And because you have to talk about it as the filmmaker, right? Like you get to, and then it's part of the way the films get circulated, where you come and you talk to us like you are today, and there's also this part of me where I don't want to ask the filmmaker because they are a woman about the emotional life of the documentary making, right? I mean, maybe I would have asked a man as well. However, there's also this part of me that, recognizing the bravery and the courage it takes to kind of create this type of film, is thinking, what does it mean for you to make films about loss and grief, right? Because you made the one about losing your grandmother, and you've made this one about your father, and then kind of thinking through spiritual or intellectual parenting, right? Like your advisor from MA, Vintila Mihailescu also passed recently, and then the pandemic came, right? So there's just, I'm thinking of the artist's role in articulating and helping us deal with grief, and at the same time, you as an artist are experiencing a lot of that in the context of all of us magnifying our grief because of the losses of the pandemic. So yeah, I guess my question is, like, how are you dealing with all of that, and is grief kind of your topic next, or like or like, how is that allowing, where is creativity sort of pulling you under the covers and layers of all of this personal and social losses? If that makes sense.
I think that, I don't know, film and photography are very related to loss and to grief, because in a way you film something to keep it with you, and it has to do a lot with having something and then losing it and trying to preserve a memory of it. And for me, it's very natural to use film and photography this way, and to express myself this way, and even to organize things in my head, and to put together things that are happening to me. So the harder question for me was why, and if I should take these films further to an audience. I mean, making them is the first level, and it comes very naturally, and that's it. But are they supposed to be seen by other people or not? And that was always a hard question. And I think the answer, it's very much about how these films can help other people, and help them, I don't know, communicate, express their own feelings, face their own feelings. And yeah, the discussions are very emotional all the time. So I think that the films can open up this kind of space.
Thank you for that. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure that I leave time for any Any last questions or comments?
I actually have a question, and I'm moving, sorry, because I have I have some things happening in the background. So I think I'm trying to move the conversation, or to also show maybe the bright side of it. So one of the things that you mentioned, and again, maybe it's not a question, but it might move you to talk further a little bit about this. Part of what you mentioned was that you have, and I really like how you said this, you have discovered in those VHS tapes memories that I didn't remember anymore, and that the tapes look new to you, and that you've discovered how it was your father who kind of encouraged this passion in you. So I think there's also this luminous, right, like light, not light, bright side of this process. And that was interesting to me. So yes, preservation of memories, but you talk about photography as, you start taking photos to preserve memories, keep things I enjoyed. This is what you said earlier.
Yeah, of course. And the discovery of these tapes was huge also because I discovered my father in ways that I didn't remember anymore. And he was a very nice father, actually. And discovering also my mom in a different way. I mean, everything, the whole process, actually, not just the tapes, helped me understand better my parents and see parts of them which I didn't see before.
Thank you.
Well, Andra, I think you've left us with a lot to think about, and also with a desire to keep watching this film, because it feels like one that we want to come back to again and again and again. There's always more there, a little bit like your archival work, right, at the museum. It feels like you can always go back to this film and find something and hear something in a new way. And of course, that's the case with many films, but I think yours in particular. I appreciate you being here with us tonight. Thank you for sharing a little more of yourself and of your work and of your thoughts. Are there any last maybe are there any questions you have for us? Since you have a captive audience here, that, or maybe any question that you may have for the students who may be watching this later, that will be engaging with your film at other times.
I don't know if questions, but maybe an invitation, because I think that film as a medium can set up this context to have this kind of conversations with your family, or with I don't know, a context for very sincere discussions because of this convention, because you're thinking that you're in a convention and it's like a game, and this, actually, as fake as it can look, actually leaves space for very sincere opening up. And yeah, so it's an invitation to experiment and to try to communicate with those around you.
That is such a great invitation. Yeah.
So thank you for having me here, and congratulations for what you're doing. And thank you.
Thank you for your film and for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. So thank you again, Andra and Alina, for the discussion. And I invite everyone else that's watching this later to yeah, go ahead and stream the film through our Eventive page. It's available through November 27th. Thank you again, and I hope you'll join us tomorrow. We're going to have a discussion with Director Raluca Durbacă of the Certainty of Probabilities. It's going to be at 10 a.m. PST. Thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.